You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's pay-per-view after show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's pay-per-view after show.
Welcome everybody to a very special Tuesday edition of UFC AFTERBUZZ. My name is Kris Kloss, sitting next to George Redondo, is that right? No, George Hermoza. Is that correct? Okay. Daria,
the other beach.
Yes, Daria Berenato, MMA fighter, our analyst, our expert aficionado extraordinaire, Mr. J10. Welcome, guys. Again, a very special Tuesday edition right here.
I'm excited.
We're not talking about pay-per-view today. We're talking about Fight Pass, and what a weekend. I should say, what a Saturday. 2 UFC shows in one day, one airing on Fight Pass, the other airing on Fox Sports 1, totaling 22 fights. Before we get into that, I want to introduce our very special just one guest, one of the most iconic names and faces in MMA, been involved with MMA since before UFC 1. When he trained with Rorion Gracie back in the early 1990s. Together they developed the Gracie Resisting Attack Procedures of Law Enforcement, otherwise known as Grapple. Want to introduce, thank you so much, Big John McCarthy here in the studios. A pleasure to have you. Wow. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having
me. You worked with Rorion Gracie and Art Davie, creators of the UFC, to develop the rules that later became known as the Unified Rules, recognized by the Association of Boxing Commissions, otherwise known as ABC, and the athletic commissions across North America. So one of the most iconic faces again, and one of the most recognized referees in the entire sport.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
The most.
Absolutely. So again, welcome.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely.
We will get to him later.
Yes, we will. But right now, we want to run down, and we want to get your thoughts on the main event, of course. We're going to talk about Fight Pass. Mark Munoz taking on Gegard Mousasi. The fight ended quickly. I don't know. We were talking earlier. I think there wasn't too much of an upset as far as who won. Talking to Redondo over here.
Hermoza.
I'm sorry. But the fight ended very quickly. And was that so much of an upset?
I mean, to me, not really. I really expected Gegard Mousasi. He was ranked number 11 of all the middleweights, and I think he was very unjustly ranked. I think he should be a lot higher. Former Strikeforce light heavyweight champion, former Dream champion, I believe. I think the guy, Mark Munoz, another talented guy, but he's that one guy that maybe can't really get over that hump. And I think that Mousasi is, again, a lot better than what he was ranked. So to me, it was no surprise. I don't know about you guys.
We should fill in to the viewers and listeners. The match was Gegard Mousasi beat Mark Munoz just over 3 minutes into the first round with TKO from Strike.
No.
Is that right? Excuse me. I apologize. Yeah, rear naked choke.
Hey, what kind of a rear naked choke was it?
Grip.
A gable grip rear naked choke.
Now they're messing with me because.
So Mark Munoz is known specifically for his wrestling. He's NCAA champion, I believe, and came out of Oklahoma State, powerhouse state for wrestling, and has been in the UFC for several years. Has been one of those guys that people really expected to rise slowly but surely, and had a lot of potential. He's had some great wins in his career so far. Gegard Mousasi is a star who has been fighting outside of the UFC for most of his career. Has come in recently through the acquisition of Strikeforce. He was fought in Russia and all over Europe. Then joined Strikeforce, as you said, won the Strikeforce light heavyweight title there, and then with the acquisition brought into the UFC. It was a pretty even match, as George was saying. Mousasi was ranked at 11, I believe.
Yeah, Munoz was 7th and Mousasi was 11.
Yeah. So essentially, what happened was Mousasi is known especially for his. He's got a kickboxing career. So you got classic grappler versus striker motif.
Yeah.
What surprised me, Mark Munoz came out early in the match. Went straight to his takedowns. He was shooting, and I think I counted 1 for 5 takedowns. Mousasi's not known for his wrestling, but had very good takedown defense. Mark Munoz was shooting from really far, and I didn't think that. I was surprised that he was shooting from that far away. But Gegard was able to keep him at bay. When they clinched up against the cage in the middle of the round, Munoz went for, I believe, a takedown from whizzer position, and Gegard ended up on top. Gegard stayed on top and ended up getting the rear naked choke. Yeah, wore him down with punches, got the rear naked choke. And it's one that I could see. I saw Munoz winning, but played out the other way. And it does beg the question, where's Mark Munoz in his career? And Gegard Mousasi continues his climb up the rankings. So, yeah.
So you could have saw it going the other way?
Yeah, I think it was a pretty even match. I think obviously we needed to see a better Mark Munoz show up than who did show up. But
he just doesn't I love Mark Munoz, but you put him up against Machida or Weidman, and then unfortunately he's on the losing end of the stick. But you put him up against the guys that maybe aren't the guys that haven't really main evented yet, and he beats those guys. So
I think he's 1 for 3 in his last 4, I believe. But against Chris Weidman, I can forgive that one, and Machida
that was brutal.
That was a very last minute thing as well, and obviously Machida is very dangerous on the feet. So, not to alibi away his losses, but we'll see where he goes from here.
He said he's not done, so I really hope that
I'm sure
gets
he's
back
not
on there.
I think it's a matter of just retinkering his game.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Real quick, talking about losses. Weight loss. Maria Menounos came out today.
Good segue.
It's the Every Girl's Guide to Diet and Fitness. It's her second book, and we're going to show you a clip right now.
Hey guys, Maria Menounos here, and I want to share my newest book, The Every Girl's Guide to Diet and Fitness, with you. Basically, every woman always stops me and asks me how I lost 40 pounds. So I decided to put it all in one book. Everything I did to lose 40 pounds step by step, and how you can too, is in here. I did it with no time, no money, and no willpower, and now I'm going to show you how to do it too. You can pre-order it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, wherever books are sold, and it's out June 3rd. So I hope you guys love it. I hope it helps you in your weight loss journey, and please, please tweet me and update me on your progress at Maria Menounos. Thanks.
All right, well, that book is out. It just came out today once again, so pick up a copy of that book. We're going to be talking about another book in just a little bit. Right now, I want to run down some future UFC doubleheader dates. This is a big deal, ladies and gentlemen. The UFC holding 2 events in one day, so this should be quite extraordinary. The first date, June 28th, August 23rd, and October 24th. Those coming up, of course, in the future, and we will be here discussing that and before that, prior, leading up to those double headers. So,
UFC.com for details and where to watch them.
Absolutely.
Right?
So I think it's time to prevail upon our guest here.
Let's get it on.
Let's talk.
Yes.
Nice one.
I want to
Never heard that one.
No. now, you are also the creator and head instructor of Command. I love the the way you the synonyms here. Certification of officials for mixed martial arts and national development, an internationally recognized and ABC accredited MMA referee and judging training school. So future referees, future judges coming up in the ranks.
Future. The Command program was put together because there came a point where we have so many shows that started coming, and we didn't have a lot of experienced officials, and so it was, my idea to try to do something that I thought was going to benefit the sport. There's a lot of instruction that's out there. You can go and you go to an online course and say you get instructed. You can go to other ABC certified instructional courses. the one thing you'll find out of the command that is good and bad is it's the hardest course there is by far. Everybody that's taken multiple ones say there's no comparison about which one's harder, and I look at that, and I've had a lot of people say it's wrong, you shouldn't fail these people, you shouldn't do this. I always look at it, you know what, no one has the right to get a license from any state athletic commission. That's a privilege, and it's a privilege to be able to work with fighters like Mark Munoz, Gegard Mousasi. Those guys put in an incredible amount of time and effort to get to the level that they're at, and they deserve to have people that understand what they're doing, how they're doing it, if they're doing it correctly, what they're going after. And if people don't understand that, well, then you're not going to pass my course. And so mine's kind of tough. It's got a lot of tests. I have to be a referee. It's a 3-day course. There's 5 tests, and if you pass it, that doesn't mean that you're ready to just jump in there and start right away. We have a lot of people that they have this desire to be part of MMA, and that's awesome. We want that. But they also have this desire to step into the big show and think that it's going to be this great experience, and many times it is the worst experience of their life. So we have it set up here in California. If you pass my course, you get to start to work with the amateurs out of the camo program. I have guys that have taken that command course that have risen all the way through the ranks, and a lot of them. I can sit here and name off all the ones that have been officials in the UFC, and I take a lot of pride in that. I'm really happy that a lot of them have made it to that point.
Well, kudos to you for that, and you should. Again, you've been there since before UFC 1, so if there's anybody to look to as far as reffing and the rules and regulations, and a lot of that has got to be in this book, and I want to plug this book right now. Aptly titled, Let's Get It On. When did this book come out, John?
I want to say like 2 years ago.
Okay.
Somewhere around there. It was, me and Loretta Hunt. Loretta Hunt was my ghostwriter on it. We spent time putting it together. She had asked me long ago, to write. She wanted to write a book, and I kept telling her no. And as things were going on, and there's a lot of people out there that they take credit for things that they never did, and they sit there and say some people try to change history, and I got tired of listening to some of it, and some of the people that really did a lot for the sport. And there's a person in there that I talk about a lot. And that's Jeff Blatnick. He did a lot for the sport of MMA. Jeff Blatnick was an Olympic gold medalist in Greco-Roman wrestling, and the UFC back long ago, we stole Jeff Blatnick's credibility to try to make us credible. We said, look, we have an Olympic gold medalist who loves what we do and understands it, this and that. And we kept, using Jeff. And Jeff was an incredible ambassador for the sport. And he kind of got pushed to the side later on, in the show, and things kind of, went bad. Then he kind of came back. He was actually a judge in New Jersey and kind of was getting back with the sport and stuff. But, recently he just passed away. But I was really glad that I was able to put stuff out about what Jeff had done and other people had done it, and made some semblance of what really occurred and how it occurred.
Wow.
John's book is a lot of fun to read. I checked it out finally over the last Christmas holiday. For probably the first year. Actually, I had it for probably a year and a half. I apologize.
It was so hot on his shelf.
No, I didn't have the time to set aside, frankly, and I would get through 1 or 2 or 3 chapters or so. I got to the gift that I'll draw back later on, that chapter, and then would put it down. And then finally over Christmas, I said, I'm bringing this, the only thing I'm bringing to read over the holidays. And I went through, I'd say, 3/4 of it in one night, just going to sleep, and I didn't go to sleep. A lot of fun, a lot of great information and backstory on the creation of the UFC.
It's a good size read, too.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it flows very smoothly. There's some awesome pictures in there, and it gives a lot of depth to, for, again, my casual fans, love you guys out there. If you want to learn about the sport and get some real depth of how did this whole thing evolve, and the ups and downs that John's gone through, he is not, we'll want to talk about this as well, he's not, quote unquote, a UFC ref,
Right.
But, he, like anybody else in the sport, has gone through the ups and downs, and there's a really a lot of interesting, good backstory stuff in there, chock full of great stories.
One thing I'm sure is touched upon on there that I want to talk to you about is the judging system. I know that's an evolution in itself, still growing, and I've spoken with you about this briefly in our other interview. So I want to talk to you about where you think our judging system is going, where you'd like to see it go. What do you think is still wrong with it?
There's a lot wrong with it.
Putting you on the spot.
Well, you know what, and just going back, Jeff Blatnick and I are the ones that the current criteria for judging is exactly what Jeff Blatnick and I wrote back in 1998-99.
Currently called the Unified Rules.
Now they now say this is the Unified Rules of MMA. This is the judging criteria.
Right.
It's exactly what we wrote.
Wow.
Okay. And when we wrote it, you had to understand the UFC was in a position where we had a lot of political pressure. We had a lot of people that were against us. It was really off of cable. The only way you could really see it was on, if you had at that time satellite. It wasn't even dish or direct. It was satellite TV.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks,
And-
John McCain.
Exactly. It's just because he cared about people. That's all. Just let's make sure that's in there. So I got some great Arizona beachfront property for you. But when you look at it, what we wrote was based upon what we thought was going to be the best thing, and I can tell you at the time, the first thing that we put out there, when I tried to put it together the right way, was the word damage. Because what people don't understand, in a fight, people look at fighting different than it really is. Fighters don't look at fighting the same as the average person does. They're not there to permanently hurt their opponent, but they need to damage their opponent. And when we talk about damage, it's damaging their ability to be effective offensively against you. It's damaging their endurance. It's damaging their spirit and their actual desire to stay with what they're doing at this moment.
Right.
There's all kinds of things you're trying to damage, but damage is a huge part of fighting. Well, Bob Meyerowitz was the owner of the UFC at the time, and we gave him his thing, and he looked at me and he said, "Are you freaking kidding me? I have everyone in the world trying to shut me down, and you want them to be able to take a look at the first thing that they're being judged on, and it's damage." So we ended up coming up with effective striking, effective grappling, octagon control, effective aggressiveness, and we actually had at the time effective defense that led to offensive actions.
Okay.
And that was what we had put together. And to this day, in 2010, they switched one thing. The ABC went and switched and took out the effective defense part, because we've always said that you don't score defense in MMA. Everything is offensive.
Right.
And so they took that part out. So that's been the only change since 1999.
So now
Okay.
the aggressiveness in the sport is more acceptable. Do you think that the rules are affected there?
There are people out there that still, to this day, they don't want the word damage. Nick Lembo in
Really?
New Jersey, we can't put the word damage. It's ridiculous. I'm just going to say it straight out. It is. Now, every year, things should be looked at. The sport is evolving. The fighters fight differently today than they did
Absolutely.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
The sport's evolving, and we need to evolve with it. As the commissions, the ABC, the officials, everybody needs to evolve with it, because if you don't evolve, it's going to pass you by. And those rules should be looked at every year on what can we do to make this better. Right now, we hamstring our judges. Our judges are getting raped over the coals about bad judging, when many times they are actually following the criteria that there
rules.
is part of their rules of what
Right.
they can do, and people don't like it. Then good, change the criteria. I'm
Right.
telling you, it needs to be changed. When you look at everything that we have, the four major criteria, there's only two of it that actually makes up a fight. And I kind of took effective aggressiveness and ring kick or octagon control at the time. I took that from boxing as far as ring generalship.
Okay.
Who gives a shit who dances the best?
Right.
It doesn't matter. All that matters is who is punching who's kicking who's elbowing who, and who is out grappling and putting submissions on. If you don't have those two elements in this sport, you don't have a fight. You don't have anything. You have guys that are moving around, maybe looking real tough with their face,
Right.
not touching each other, and how do you judge? You can't judge that.
Right.
So the things that need to be put in there are who is actively attempting to finish the fight. Who is the guy that is going after this fight in a way that he's trying to be offensive? Who's the one that's backing away from it? He's
Right.
not going to get any kind of credit. Who is the one that's actually being effective in damaging or diminishing the abilities of his opponent?
Who's winning the fight?
That's going to tell you who's winning the fight.
Do you think that that wording has the potential to change now that it is becoming slightly more acceptable, except for the guy in New Jersey?
I would love to think it will, but you know what? We're going to have to wait and see.
Time will tell. Well, speaking of controversial UFC bouts, I do want to drop a few of them.
Before we get into that, though, let me just let everybody know. Get your tablets out, get your phones, get your computers, at AfterBuzz TV on Twitter. I want you guys to follow them. Awesome thing to follow. Get your phones. Get your phone. At AfterBuzz on Twitter. At
Chris
AfterBuzz TV.
hadn't done that already.
At AfterBuzz TV.
He took us a little too literal.
At AfterBuzz, you got it? At AfterBuzz TV on Twitter.
Appreciate
you following
it,
them?
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
News and info on all the latest AfterBuzz shows. Yeah?
At AfterBuzz TV on Twitter.
All right, guys, you heard him. Now, I do want to talk about some of the most controversial UFC bouts in history.
Yeah, we wanted to get your opinion on these.
To be clear, I do not think you reffed any of them.
You probably reffed one, but before I get
Maybe
into
one?
that though,
Okay.
is it different maybe being in the ring or in the octagon with the guys, kind of being able to, are you just strictly reffing or are you kind of judging into the back of your head too?
No, you don't judge in the back of your head. You're watching things for what you need to do.
Safety of the fighters.
It's all
and
about the safety of the fighter.
Finish.
Does not matter who is winning. It matters in the fact of if you watch me referee, you'll know who I think is winning the fight based upon where I stand. Because I'm always going to stand to the point where I see the person who's getting beat up. I'm going to see their open side. Now sometimes I'm going to be the open side of the other fighter just because of movement or something like that. But you're going to see me staying most of the time to the open side of the guy who's getting beat. But I'm not thinking about what the score should be or anything like that.
Have you ever reffed a match and then sometimes afterwards thought, how the hell did the judges come to that decision? after the match. After the match.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just the way it is.
It's a subjective thing.
There's one thing that you need to understand as the referee, I get to move freely within that cage.
Right.
And I see everything, or just about everything. The judge gets to sit in one seat, and many times, my big butt's in the way, or Herb's butt's in the way, or the angle is they can't see what occurs.
Sure.
And the other thing that they don't have most of the time, sometimes they do when the fight's right in front of them, but they don't get to hear the fight. And when you hear the things that are going on, and you hear the sounds that come out of fighters and things like that, that's a lot of information there that sometimes they don't get.
Interesting.
Yeah, we've talked about that in the past where a match, even just for fans, a match can come across very differently on TV than if you're there live.
Absolutely.
And even more so when it's Big John and, the judges.
Have you ever felt when walking in there and seeing each guy come in, oh God, this guy's going to lose today?
Oh, absolutely.
In John's book, he talks about the best seat in the house, and that's part of why you got involved in the event, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I would tell you that if I was able to bet on it,
at that moment,
99% of the time, I'm going to tell you exactly who's going to win. Every now and then, one will shock me.
Right.
But I don't care who wins, and so it doesn't matter to me. But I do want to protect the fighter. That's the whole thing. And so you do look at, and fighters will tell you, fighters don't talk with words; they talk with their body language and their motions. And sometimes they say a whole lot. And when a guy's eyes are doing certain things or his body language is a certain way, he wants to be anywhere but where he's at.
Really.
And this is probably not going to be a good day for him.
Do you have one that comes to mind?
Oh, no, I'm not going to talk about
it. Buy the book. Buy the book.
I tried.
Good shot.
Thanks.
Talk a little bit first. Let's give some backstory to those that they see you on TV. They don't know you as well. Talk about your backstory with the UFC, how you got involved. You work with Hori and
I got
things
involved
like
with the UFC. I started...
Even touching on the police work, because I know your work with the LAPD kind of segued into, and I think it's worth going back to when Chris mentioned grapple, how you and Horian came about, because that's really the basis of...
I met Horian Gracie through it was a meeting of a lot of martial artists for the LAPD. And I was asked to be part of this martial arts review panel and stuff. And
you were a cop at the time, correct?
I was a cop at the time, and they had an individual. I'm not going to say his name, but he was there, and he was trying to demonstrate how his martial arts could work for police officers in given situations, and he had this student that was with him, and he was tossing this student around. He was doing a beautiful job of tossing him around, but the student was allowing himself to be tossed around.
Sure.
And so I'm sitting there and I kind of, I'm looking, and he looked at me and he goes, yeah, you don't think that this is going to work? And I said, look, it's working at something that's allowing it to work. If someone doesn't want that to happen, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
He says, well, do you want to step up here and try? And I said, well, I'll step up there, but I'm not going to just stand there. I'm not going to just let you do something. I'll do something back to you. He says, that's okay. Well, I had wrestled, for a long time in my life, and I boxed, and he ends up doing something, and I pick him up, and I double leg him, and I end up in mount on top of him, and I have his arm, and I gift wrapped his arm around, and I'm slapping him. And I said, now what are you going to do? And my boss, he started yelling at me, get off of him. And so I got off and I said, I'm sorry. And I get back, and this guy comes up and sits down next to me and starts talking to me, and it was Rorion Gracie. He says, what martial art do you do? And I go, I don't do any martial arts. and that was how my relationship with him. He invited me down to a school. I went down there. I started, first guy I grappled with was Royce. I just fell in love with what they did. And so I became a student. I became a believer in, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I loved, Hickson and Royce and Hoyler, and all of them were great to me. And then at a certain point, there was this show that this, little loud guy named Art Davie was going to, trying to put on. It was called War of the Worlds, and it eventually turned into the UFC. And after the very first show, after the very first fight, actually, the very first fight that happened in the UFC was Gerard Gordeau against Taylor Tooley. And the referee for it was a gentleman by the name of João Barreto. I know him very well. I've talked to him, a lot. He was a black belt under Elio Gracie. And he, in that fight, did what he was not supposed to do because he had compassion for another human being. Taylor goes charging across. Gerard goes in this business. Gerard circles out, and when Taylor goes down, Gerard kicks him to the face. Knocks a tooth out. It goes flying
into the crowd.
Hits him with the right hand, cuts him at the eye, and João Barreto comes in and stops it, but he wasn't supposed to. It was supposed to be that the fighter had to tap out, or the corner threw in the towel, and
which probably wasn't going to happen at that point anyway.
Because no one had any idea what they're doing, and anyways. And so there was this conflict between Rorion Gracie. You can watch him, go back to the old videos, and you'll see him and João Barreto are yelling at each other in Portuguese, and João Barreto saying, "This guy can't fight," and that's what got me my job. Rorion came to me and said, "Hey, I need you to do me a favor." And I go, "What? What do you need?" And he says, "I need you to referee for me." I said, "Dude, I don't know how to referee." And he had, honest to God, my qualification in his mind was. He says, "John, you know everything that guy, you know what guys should be doing. You know what you're looking at, and you don't mind seeing people get hurt." That was really what it was. Is that I didn't mind seeing people. You see a lot of bad things.
You're going to be the liberal guy.
I'm going to be the guy
who's going to be too conservative, right?
That's it. So that's how I got my start.
So never crossed your mind before then? Refereeing never crossed your mind like previously?
Never.
Talk about what you did want to do with the UFC originally.
Well, at a certain point, I wanted to fight in it, but you know what? That was quickly, and I'd say, look, Rorion gave me that opportunity to be the referee. After the first show I did, I said I will never do that again. And
look at you now.
But he gave me the greatest gift, other than my kids.
Yeah.
He gave me the greatest gift I ever got because it led me into a life that I never would have lived. I've got to do more things, be part of more things because of that one little thing of him asking me to be the referee.
Yeah, and certainly, an authority figure and a recognizable presence,
and he has
a more important role in the sport than you probably could have envisioned had you been a fighter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fighters have come and gone. I mean, of course, there's legendary ones, but Big John McCarthy has been here all along, and we still know his name, and I'm sure we always will, as being the first referee of the UFC.
Well, we have some questions, some fun questions to...
Fun for who?
Well,
actually,
definitely fun for us.
That's another good question.
There you go.
Who are they fun for? You want to kick it off, Daria? Ladies first.
Okay. Who is your favorite fighter to share a cage with? Just who brings that energy? You get in there with them, and you're.
I'd be lying if I told you one. I'd be lying.
Give us 5.
3, 5.
In no particular order.
Yeah. In no particular order. We're not being biased here, but
just some fun guys to get in there with.
Well, when you say fun, I am honored to step into a ring or cage with anybody that has the guts and courage to try to be an MMA fighter.
Okay.
And I mean that. There's obviously 99.99999% of the fighters I have absolutely respected and cared about. There's always going to be the idiot.
Right. Right.
You know, and so
Who's the idiot?
I was gonna say you're not gonna give
who's
us
a good
that
one?
name.
I can't think of a true name of one that you would know.
Sure.
I'm serious, I can't. You know,
There's always one bad apple in the bunch.
well, there's someone that's going to act like a fool.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know, and sometimes you have to do things about it, and sometimes you end up taking wins away from people, and that's just part of life.
Right.
Yeah.
But all of them, you know, the Chuck Liddells and the Randy Couture's and the Fedor Emelianenko's and the Anderson Silva's and the George St. Pierre's, and all of these guys, you know, how do I pick just one?
Right.
You know, BJ Penn, I leave him out. I feel terrible leaving him out. I can't just pick one.
Right.
What is it about those guys? What's the through line, that quality that they all have that gets you, pardon the pun, buzzing for your job and your position?
You know what? It's the fact that they come in and they put it on the line, but it's all about that moment, and they don't make excuses about things. They come out and do things, and sometimes, you know, this is what people don't realize is they come out when that date shows up. They appear,
Okay.
and sometimes they're at their very best, and sometimes that's a bad day for them before they even walk in the cage, and you know it.
Right.
And they still have the courage to walk in that cage, and that's what courage is about. Doing something when you know this is not a good thing to do,
Right.
and going out and doing it anyways, and that's what I see out of some of these guys, and I just absolutely admire what they do.
Performing when you're at your worst, it says so much more about you than
Absolutely.
when you're at your best. I mean, we've
true.
seen guys over the years fight with broken hands, broken ribs, this and that, getting approved by medical just a few days before something bad happens,
Yep.
and they go in there and they do it anyway.
Yeah.
Recent bouts. Is there a recent bout that comes to mind that you were just in love with the performance?
Oh God, you know, if I go to 2013, the two fights that I was so impressed with the performance. I love John Jones against Alexander Gustafsson.
Oh, yeah.
Because and this is what people don't. I look at it differently. I got two guys that are about 225 pounds each. Absolutely maintaining a level of motion and action for 5 rounds at 5 minutes a round.
25 minutes.
That was absolutely incredible.
Right.
With the amount of damage that they were inflicting on each other.
I mean, speaking of that fight, what you did, ref, I mean, how close was the doctor to stopping it? Because I heard you had to beg.
Let's
talk about that one.
You know, I love the words that come up. It's like, if I beg a doctor, it's definitely not going to be for somebody else.
I read it on the internet, so it had to be true.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
There you go. You know, what happens is, you know, with doctors, we have a lot of different, you know, levels of everything. And we have ringside physicians that are incredibly gifted at what they do. And when I say that, it's very difficult to be a ringside physician. It's difficult before the fight. You know, when you have, as a doctor, you have people come to you. Those people are sitting there saying, "Oh, doc, my elbow hurts, my hand hurts, I got a problem with my head on this side." You're telling the doctor everything. Well, fighters are doing exactly the opposite when it comes to that medical. They're going in there, and the doctor's saying, "What? Yeah, what injuries you had? None. What problems you have? None. I'm good. You have any kind of, you have any problems with this training? Nope. Absolutely good." So the doctor has to try to find these things, and there's ways that they do it when they're good. And then when it comes to being ringside, there's doctors that, look at, a doctor has taken a Hippocratic oath to do what? Do no harm and to take care of people that are injured.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, when you've got 2 fighters in there and one's injured, you're supposed to take care of them. So it's a hard thing for the doctor to stand back and go, yeah, let him just keep on going.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Right.
So, what happened with Alexander and John was, and it would have been exactly the same. A lot of people said, "Oh, you helped John Jones," and it's like, you're retarded. If the same thing was happening with Alexander, I would have done the same thing with Alexander.
Right.
I had 2 guys that were in an incredibly competitive fight. I have John Jones, who is the champion. Alexander is absolutely putting on a fight where he possibly can take that title. John had been cut since the first round. The cut had gotten a little bit worse throughout the fight, and at the end of the 4th round, it was a nasty cut. It didn't look good, but it wasn't affecting John in the fight, meaning that he wasn't pawing at it. You'll see guys, when they get affected by something, they'll sit there and they get hit, and they sit there and they'll paw at their eye to try to get the blood out, and they keep on touching it. It's telling you up here it's affecting him. John wasn't doing that. John wasn't doing that. John was absolutely let it go. And so when the doctor looks at it, the doctor is looking at it as a doctor saying, it doesn't look good to me. He said, I think I should stop the fight. And so I'm looking at him saying, Doc, he's gone 4 rounds. He's the champion. This is a close fight. If it gets worse, I'll bring him to you. Let him go. And that's what I'm telling him to do. And the doctor looks at me, and this is the same doctor that I worked with when I had Mark Hominick with the huge,
the baseball and his
got the big old goiter
there
on his head. And so he listened to me in that. And so he trusts me, and he says, okay. And so the fight continued on. There was no real begging.
Looking back,
we don't beg doctors.
I mean, do you go back and kind of judge the fight after post fight? Of course. Do you think the right person won?
In that, yeah.
Okay.
John won the fight. If you go back and watch it, and I think what a lot of people did with that, and Alexander put on an incredible fight.
Amazing.
But because Alexander was doing things to John Jones that nobody else had done, they gave him more credit in the fight than he really deserved, as far as they didn't give John enough.
Right.
And if you go back and watch the fight, and I've watched that fight probably 10 times.
Wow.
Absolutely, John Jones won the fight. It went to the right person. Do I want to see him fight again? I want to see him fight again. I think it'll be a great fight. The other fight that I absolutely loved last year that I was lucky enough to do was Eddie Alvarez versus Mike Chandler.
Oh, yeah.
That was
down in Long Beach.
Unbelievable. Those two guys beat the piss out of each other and just kept going. And both of them had chances to win that fight before it came to a decision. It was absolutely a high energy, just incredible output by both guys. So those are my 2 favorite fights from last year.
Those are definitely good ones.
That I did.
Another very close one there, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to ask you about 5 close ones in a second. You want to throw them at him, George?
Yeah, let's go. I mean, these are ones that you didn't ref.
You did not
so
ref.
If anything, you probably got that the spectator aspect. But the first one was it was a while ago. It was Matt Hamill versus Michael Bisping. It was funny because it was, I think if anybody remembers, it was in England. It was in the United Kingdom.
Right.
And there was 2 British judges and 1 American judge.
Nope, you're wrong.
2 American and 1.
There you go.
2 American. One British one. The 2 American ones scored it for Bisping. The one for
British.
Hamill. But I think the thing that irked everyone was just Bisping was so cocky at the end and just kind of acting like he completely dominated Hamill.
Here's the thing that people don't get. The fighter, Michael Bisping. Michael Bisping's a good guy. He's a great guy. I love reffing Michael Bisping because he's tough. He absolutely comes to fight. He is a great fighter. I love watching him.
And you get to foul him all day long. I'm just kidding, Mike.
I'm not saying that Michael hasn't made mistakes. We all do. We all grow, and we all mature, and we all learn things from some of the dumb things that we've done, and I've done a ton of them. But in that fight, what people don't understand is Michael Bisping was not sitting on the outside watching the fight. He thinks that he's doing well at times that everyone else is going, you're not doing too well. And he honestly believes that he won that fight. Now, he's got a corner, and all corners are different. Corners are telling him, you won that round. So as soon as his corner says he won the round, in his mind, he won the round. So at the end of it, he believes he won the fight. And people are looking at him going, oh, you should know that you didn't win. He doesn't. It's not the way you're thinking.
Right.
So did I think that he won that fight? No, I thought Matt Hamill won the fight. But, this is what happens. And this is, when you have it, people, when you look at the judging, I think Cecil Peoples was one of the judges. I can't remember who the other American judge was. But the British judge had it 30-27 for Hamill.
I think that's what I had it, too.
Yeah.
And there are some people that did. I could have gone 29-28 on it. I could have seen that, but I didn't see Michael winning the fight.
What did you think was the worst call of all time, if you could pick one, whether it be yours or someone else's call?
There's been a lot.
There's been a lot. I'm sure. I know that's kind of narrowing it down.
There's been fights that a lot of people haven't seen.
Some that stick out, maybe.
Oh my God, I'm trying to think. There was a fight that happened back east I did with Mike Easton, who's part of the UFC now, against Chase Beebe. Chase Beebe was on Mike Easton's back for probably about 17 minutes of a 25-minute fight. And, was going after chokes, was punching not really hard. There was some moments for Mike, Easton when he was in the stand-up that he was doing well, but always ended up in a bad position. And when you understand, when someone's on your back, it doesn't matter. You're defending. You can sit there and throw an elbow back. That doesn't do anything.
Right.
To sit there and say that's an offensive action, it's not offensive. Get your butt out of there. That's being offensive. And so that was a fight that was not good. I didn't, there are a lot of fights that take place that people look at and they think are controversial. They say, oh, controversial decision. It's not controversial at all. You wanted one guy, John Jones against Alexander Gustafsson. You wanted Alexander to win. You think he won because everything that he's doing, you're giving more credit to. Everything that John Jones is doing, you're giving less credit to. And so you're looking at the fight with a little bit of a slanted eye.
Right.
And that happens with a lot of fights. You know, Johnny Hendricks fights George St. Pierre. In that fight, the problem with the scoring of that fight is the rounds that Johnny Hendricks wins, he wins decisively. The rounds that you can give to George St. Pierre, he's winning by a small margin, but when you look at the scorecard, they're the same.
Yeah, that's right.
And we've got to give the judge the ability to say, hey, okay, this is absolutely a difference in this round. We've got to be able to mark it down. So,
Do you think that the trick is we've got the 10-point must system, which was brought over and modified for boxing in the early days. Is the trick to rearrange or to change the criteria of the 10-point must system, or is there some other version, kind of like Pride used to do, that where you guys judge who won the fight at the end of it? What do you think is the key?
The problem with the old Pride system is to judge a fight and say, by the end, I'm going to say who won. You don't remember the beginning.
Yeah.
No matter what anyone wants to say. It's hard to sit there and to concentrate for 5 minutes.
That's true.
Without thinking about anything else.
Very true.
And then to write it down and let it go. That's fine. But to sit there and say, I'm going to do this for 15 minutes or 25 minutes, it's just not going to happen the way you want. The problem is we have, like I said, the criteria is wrong and our use of the point system is wrong. We have it to where, you know, in boxing, if we have a knockdown, and a knockdown in boxing, it doesn't even mean the guy was hurt. I get a guy that I hit, he's off balance, and he touches the glove down. That's a knockdown. He's going to get an 8 count, and we'll get the fight going back together because he's not hurt. But it's a knockdown, and it is now a 10-8 on the scorecards of the judges. If you look at boxing, when we have 10-8 rounds and all 3 judges give it that 10-8 score, 88% of the time that occurs. When you have 10-8 in MMA, where we have all 3 judges giving it a 10-8, it's 2% of the time. 2%.
Really?
That's a problem. That means we have judges that are not looking at things the same way.
Not all 10-8s are even.
So we've got to sit there and say, look, we need to make a 10-9 is a very close round. One guy, squeaks by the other guy. A 10-8 has to be where it is that Johnny Hendricks, George St. Pierre. It's clear he won the fight. A 10-7 is when we're getting into he got dominated or he got damaged. And even with what we have now, when we talk about a guy getting a 10-8 round, we usually go by the double D's of domination and damage. You get those two, you should give a 10-8 to that person. But we have judges that at that point sit there and start to think, okay, should I? If you say you've got this and you say you've got that, it's automatic. Give it to them.
Right.
And it can be at times that we have fights where we have just domination of the round. We have a fighter. Quentin Jackson had a fight against Forrest Griffin.
Yep.
Forrest ends up winning the title. If you look at the first round, Quentin almost puts Forrest out of the fight. He almost has him out. But it goes to the second round, and Forrest starts out. He hits him with a couple leg kicks. You see it hurts Quentin because he kind of hobbles.
Yeah.
He ends up taking Quentin down, and for 5 minutes, 5 minutes, Quentin does not do one offensive action in that round. How do you give him 9 points? You can't.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything. He survived. All he did was live to get up off of his feet to come back and fight another round.
Right.
But we have judges that give him 9 points. You can't do that.
What are they seeing when they do that?
They're saying, well, Forrest didn't damage him enough for me. He dominated him. Dominated the action. And so you've got to say, that's a 10-8 round. Because we can't, we need to tell fighters, we need to be able to say, look, if you end up someone takes you down, gets your back, and you're going to sit there and hold on to it, that judge is going to give that fighter a 10-8 round against you.
Right.
So you're going to be in real trouble. So you might want to try to get out of there. Because you're basically giving up the fight on the scorecards if you stay there.
So it's just as much as of Forrest being in a good position for the whole time, as well as Quentin not doing anything at all. If you're not going to work for it, then you should be penalized.
And Forrest was doing a lot during that round. He was elbowing, he's punching, he moved from, he moved from half guard to side control to mount. He was in mount at the end, and he's hitting him a lot.
Yeah.
Were they hurting him? It's hard to hurt Quentin Jackson.
Right.
He's a tough guy.
That's
but
right.
you know what? He was doing everything that you want a fighter to do, while one was doing nothing but holding on and surviving.
Control.
Yeah.
That's it.
Real quick, guys. Go to iTunes, rate and comment, tell a friend. It only takes a minute to like.
A question I want to throw out to you. We had a couple guests on, Josh Barnett last time, Don Fry, and these are a couple guys
They
that
don't talk much, do they?
No, not at all.
Especially not Don.
Get a few words in edgewise there, but
No comment.
Don Fry, Josh Barnett, a couple guys that kind of made that transition from pro wrestling to MMA back and forth, and the UFC is such a mainstay now. We were talking to them the differences in professional wrestling and their careers, how they transition. The WWE, for example, of kind of that one company that's monopolized the business. There's really no competition. Do you see in the next, say, 5 to 10 years any competition, or is the UFC going to be the only game in town, in your opinion?
Well, to say that they're going to be the only game, they're obviously not going to be the only game in town. But are they the NFL of MMA?
The NBA, NFL.
They are
right?
the NFL right now.
Yeah.
If you sit there and look at it any other way, you're lying.
Yeah.
They are by far the biggest promotion that is out there.
Absolutely.
And Bellator is a good promotion, and they're coming up, and they're still making steps towards gaining position and stuff. They have the money behind them that they need, with Viacom being the people that actually put money towards it and stuff. But Viacom's going to have to make the decision on, do they want to compete with the UFC? If you're going to sit there and if the UFC really has no competition, well, then who's going to take them over? You've got to try to compete with them. Now, the UFC is going to sit there and compete back and sit there and do things.
Of course.
But it's good for fighters that there is multiple big shows for them to go to.
Absolutely.
It's not great for the fans always, because if that one fighter that you want to see fighting over here is over in this one, and you can't get that fight made that you want, that sucks.
That was in pro wrestling too. They had that. And,
Same thing.
And the company wants to be the only game in town, but when there was competition, it was more interesting on certain levels.
Yeah, and everyone's going to be in a position. If you go back years ago, go back to when Zuffa bought the UFC. At that time, Dana and Lorenzo, they would have co-marketed with Pride, who was the biggest actual MMA promotion that's in most people's minds. They were looking at saying Pride had surpassed UFC. They were into that. Yeah, we'll co-promote with you.
But a lot of that was because the UFC had something to gain in that, right?
Absolutely. So now, if you're the UFC
Economic decision.
What's your reason for co-promoting?
That's
with
right.
anyone?
Right.
All you're doing is marketing
Building
someone
up the
else's
little
brand.
guy.
Absolutely.
It doesn't
not.
make sense to you.
Yeah.
And for someone to sit there and say, yeah, but they should do it. It's like, they are a business.
It's a
you
business,
need to understand. This is
At the end of the
this is
day.
a business. They run their business in an incredible fashion. They, you're going to hear all kinds of things about fighters and fighters pay. Look at fighters sign on the dotted line, okay? And when you if I sign a contract to buy a car, and then 6 months down the road, I don't think that's a fair price. Doesn't matter. I signed on the damn line for it. Okay?
Fighting is a privilege. It's not a right.
Exactly.
Right?
You know what? No one's forcing you to sign with the UFC.
Right.
They're offering you something. You take it. Then damn it, fight, win. And if you win and you get to the end of that contract, then ask for more. Then that's your right. But no one's ever going to be perfectly happy. Everyone wants more money. Dana wants more money. Lorenzo wants more money. Every fighter wants more money.
I want more
It's
money.
understandable.
right.
But it's just that there's always going to be that balance between the promoter and the fighter. The promoter wants to pay the fighter as little as he can to get him out there, and the fighter wants to get the promoter to pay him as much as he can for him to go out.
Yeah.
Right.
Simple
Of
business.
course.
That is what has happened with the NFL, with the WWE, with the NBA.
Yeah.
And if they're going to have the opportunity to do that, then, like you said, it's a business. As far as refereeing, and have you ever thought yourself of doing different sports ever, or other than MMA, as far as officiating?
I officiate boxing. I officiate boxing here in California. In fact, I'll do the Glory Kickboxing has got a pay-per-view show here on the 21st. I'll be an official for that.
That's going to be
Awesome.
a fun
How far
show.
ahead do you know what you're gonna like? Are you already gonna ref the July show in the UFC or?
I do know certain shows that I will be working, if I had to actually turn down a UFC this week in Albuquerque because I'm in Vancouver teaching, and then I'll work the UFC that's up there.
Okay.
I do have the UFC that's in San Jose, and then almost like a week later, there's one down in the Staples, and I'm doing both.
But just to
those.
clarify, you're not a UFC referee. You're a mixed martial artist referee.
No, that's the State Athletic Commission contacting me and saying, we want you to work the show. Can you work it? When I was this week, I have so many shows that I had to turn down this week. It crushes me. I hate turning them down. But I had taken a thing about teaching up in Vancouver, and then I got a call from the Chickasaw Nation, which in Oklahoma is a tribal commission for the Bellator show. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't take that. I've already scheduled myself here. They said, okay. And they go off and get somebody else. And then I was contacted by the New Mexico State Athletic Commission for the UFC, and I had to turn it down. I get contacted by, usually via email by the California State Athletic Commission saying, hey, we have a show for you. Do you want to accept this assignment? And you tell them either yes or no. Yeah.
You've even worked Jay Tan's show, the amateur event,
Thanks, darling.
MMA.
Check it in the mail there, yeah. We didn't have you on Sunday, but...
That's because the California State Athletic Commission had me teaching inspectors.
Again. That happened, that's twice in a row that CSAC and us didn't quite coincide well on schedule. All right, well, I've got a couple of quick questions I want to run past you as well, but first and foremost, let me get this out of the way. They say behind every great man is a great woman, and in this case, perhaps even an even better woman. And to that end, I want to present our guest gift, as maybe we'll dub it here, which ties into a storyline in the book, which you should go and, if you want to find out the story, which it's really a good one, pick up the book at Kindle or Amazon.
Don't tell me you got me a Zim Zam.
I don't remember that part of the book.
Oh, it's a great part of the book.
This is even better. Nah, I'm going to zing you guys here.
So you guys are going to be completely clueless, but this is a good.
I couldn't find peppermint. Because it's summertime.
Oh my gosh!
But here you go.
Oh man, thank you so much.
Next date night.
Wow.
I hate peppermint. Strawberry's so much better.
A 5-gallon tub of ice cream.
That's awesome.
It would have been peppermint because that's Elaine's favorite, apparently.
To our fans, this is how John wooed Elaine on one of their first.
I don't know if it was wooing. I was trying to make up for doing something. She thought I was nuts. Not a proud one.
But hopefully that'll make for a good date night.
That's awesome.
Especially
Thank
you and the
sir.
kids and the grandkids and all of that.
And everybody else in the world with
That's
that
it.
tub.
Right.
Well, I guess we are going to start wrapping things up here.
Okay.
But before we go, once again, the book is Let's Get It On. And again, a lot of accolades as far as your teaching goes. We were talking about, just momentarily, we're talking about pro wrestling. And I know you've gotten into boxing, but it'd be great if you could teach some of these guys, because even on a big stage and a big level, they seem to make so many mistakes to get distracted, unlike you, the MMA guys.
Pro wrestling referees.
It's amazing how there's
I should talk to those guys.
Charles Robinson and the Hebners could probably
it's
use
just amazing
Earl
how
Hebner, he
your-
just,
the command system.
so take a page out of your book, literally.
Got it.
You don't have an evil twin somewhere like that Earl Hebner, do you?
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Little John McCarthy.
Okay.
Oh God.
Well, anything else that you would like to tell your fans? Anything we've talked about the book, websites, anything right now before we sign off here?
You know what? I just want to thank everyone that watches and actually supports the sport of MMA, because without the fans, the fighters don't get to do what they do. I don't get to do what I do, and it is absolutely appreciated. If you ever have questions or anything like that, usually if you go on Twitter, you go to John McCarthy at John McCarthy MMA for Twitter, and I'll answer questions on judging things, reffing things if I can, or questions about the rules within the sport or anything like that.
Awesome.
I'm always there to try to get people so they understand the sport a little bit better.
Absolutely.
Well, it was great having you in the studio here. And as far as our next show, before we get into that, let's get some plugs out here for us. Go to KrisKloss.com, the Kris Kloss Show coming up very soon. Go to LALightning.net. Hear me do color commentary for the NBA D-League, LA Lightning up in Thousand Oaks and Venice Beach, California.
I mean, the Kris Kloss Show, I can't wait.
Double plug the Kris Kloss Show,
I can't
right?
wait, the Kris
He's
Kloss
a producer.
Show. I can't wait. At G Hermoza on Twitter. At G Hermoza on Twitter. Daria?
At Daria B28. I just want to say that Big John McCarthy is one of my favorite people in the MMA world thus far that I've met. He really is just a genuine man, and he knows his stuff.
One of the best guests.
My favorite people in the world. Not just MMA world, just the world.
Oh!
Wow.
The world.
Wow.
You don't get out very often, do you? University of MMA will be coming back to you guys August 24th. We're taking a little bit of a summer break. Club Nokia. It's going to be another hot one. This one overexceeded my expectations. Overexceeded? Over. Yeah.
Over.
Thank you guys.
There was
So
amazing.
I hope you come check it out. By the way, happy birthday to Nicole and Tabitha. Mwah. Love you both.
Are you going to bring your mom ice cream home?
Yes. Well, I did that a couple weeks ago.
Maybe can I get one scoop? Just one scoop. Actually, a double. Yeah, this scoop.
It's all you. Better in your hands. Great. Big John McCarthy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great to have you, sir.
What are we seeing next week? What are we doing?
We return Sunday, June 8th with another special guest recapping UFC Fight Night. Henderson versus,
Ruslan.
Yes.
Yes. Exactly. I still got to practice that name. I won't lie.
On Fox Sports 1. Thank you very much, fans, for joining us again. We will see you Sunday, June 8th, right here on UFC AfterBuzz at AfterBuzz TV. Thank you. So long, everybody.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.